Anyone offered you a Rolex, fake or real, recently?
I think the last time I travelled to Asia, I got lots of offers um, in the street for $10 Rolexes.
Yeah. I've got one on the display cabinet at home, bought from a man, a very nice man in New York. He was in a bit of a hurry. He had to move along and he was desperate for some cash. He said, look, I've got this very, very good watch. It's a $10,000 watch, but you can have it for $50. I've just got to get some cash. Very kind of him.
Well, these were not $50 Rolexes. They were, according to the Financial Review, $40,000 watches.
How offensive is it to a Chinese billionaire who's bribing you to now publicly try and get yourself out of a sticky corner by saying, oh, we just assumed they were fakes? That's not going to go down well with Chinese bribing billionaires.
It's not, but of course it's the Rolex is just the tip of the iceberg in this story. I mean, the much bigger problem for Stuart Robert was that he found himself took himself to China on holidays, and to somehow try and distance that visit from aiding and abetting whatever was going on there, helping a massive donor, a guy had given $2 million to the Liberal Party to stitch up a deal with the Chinese. You would think it's over for him, but you can understand why he's still there, because Malcolm Turnbull has quite properly called for an inquiry. The head of his, Martin Parkinson, is running the inquiry. I think it's reasonable that he should do his work, but on the other hand too, I think that Malcolm Turnbull should be saying to him, look, you better get a move on. We really do need a decision on this, because it's day in and day out. It's not a good look on the Parliament.
It's dragging down Mr Turnbull's stocks, but where's it coming from? A very small number of people would have had access to the information, but more importantly the photographs that have come with it that have been leaked to the Murdoch tabloids. So this is internal bomb throwing in the Liberal Party. Is it coming from the Abbott camp, still angry and smarting over the Turnbull ascension? Is it coming from people trying to jockey for position in the reshuffle? What's going on here?
Well, Peter Van Onselen tweeted yesterday from Sky that let's call a spade. The Abbott people put this out there, and those who wrote the story responded by saying that was offensive and it's wrong, and to which Van Onselen responded, well, I protect my sources as well. So that little debate didn't go very far. Look, I think the emergence of the photograph now adds some credibility to that theory that this is internal and somebody is out to get Stuart Robert, because remember, Stuart Robert actually voted for Malcolm Turnbull. He was part of the Morrison camp. Morrison voted for Abbott, but the argument was that his supporters supported Malcolm Turnbull, and Stuart Robert was one of those supporters. So he's the kind of if you're going to identify somebody who would be the result of some payback, it would certainly be Stuart Robert would be on the list.
So this is coming then from Abbott or Credlin or their supporters to
well,
try
we don't know that.
I'm saying to try and get some revenge for what they regard as treachery, and then the story emerges, oh, but Peter Credlin and the Prime Minister's office approved all of this, which is a bit of blowback, a bit of payback.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
going the other way.
Yeah.
So this is now the inner sanctum of Malcolm Turnbull's Liberal government at war with itself. If this was happening in the Labor factions, there'd be, massive descriptions of Labor at war with itself. And so far, that's not the way this has been portrayed publicly.
No, I think there's a bit of that out there. It's getting a bit of attention. If there was any suggestion that Stuart Robert was in any way funded by the taxpayer, it'd be all over. There'd be no question. And what has been established now is that he had this conference in Singapore to go to after the China event, and the taxpayer did pay for the flight from Beijing to Singapore and then home from Singapore. Now, home from Singapore is reasonable because that's where the conference was. If he was on holidays and had ended his holidays in Beijing, then it would make sense, right, that you fly him from Beijing to Singapore, not having fly all the way home and then back to Singapore.
But if he was going to China on personal business, then the taxpayer wouldn't pay for him to go in either direction. So if he was coming home at his own expense, then he should have gone to Singapore at his own expense.
Yeah, strictly speaking, I think that's what the arrangements would be within the department. That would be the arrangement. So that's why the thing it's very sticky for him now.
There's another overlooked part of this, which is that he is a shareholder in this company. He is there, in effect, pushing the interests of a company in which he owns shares, and he is using his position as a Minister of the Crown to advance the interests of a company in which he has a direct pecuniary interest.
Yeah.
That's a breach of the Minister.
Whatever Martin Parkinson comes up with, I think his days are numbered, but if he was to come up with some sort of defence, then I think that would occupy Labor's attack strategy in the Parliament for weeks to come.